Chosen one, stop. Feel your chest right now. Not metaphorically, actually feel it. Is there a tightness sitting just beneath your ribs? A pressure that has no clean name, no clear reason, but has been there for longer than you can explain. That feeling is not anxiety, that is activation. Heaven is not a passive observer of your life. It does not send quiet suggestions and hope things work out on their own. When something is moving in the spiritual realm surrounding your life, your body registers it before your mind does. And something is moving right now, powerfully, surrounding everything you have been waiting for, praying for, and quietly over months, maybe years, teaching yourself not to want too much. I need to say something that might surprise you. God is not angry at you the way you fear. The urgency you feel pressing against your spirit in this season is not the anger of disappointment. It is not the voice of a God who has run out of patience with your mistakes. It is the urgency of a father watching his child stand at the very edge of everything they were created for and not walking through, not because the door is locked, but because they cannot bring themselves to believe it is truly open for them. Chosen one, the breakthrough has already arrived. The door is open. And what heaven is saying right now with all the force of everything it carries is simply this: walk through, right now, while you can. Before we go deeper into this message, I want to tell you what you will receive if you stay until the end. I am going to show you exactly why your breakthrough has felt blocked, not because of what you did wrong, but because of something far more specific and far more fixable. I am going to name the lie that lives at the threshold of every chosen one's breakthrough, the one that gets loudest at the exact moment the door opens. I am going to show you who you actually are underneath the delay. And I am going to give you a framework for how to step through the door that has been standing open this entire time. Stay. What is coming is worth every second. Now, let me find you exactly where you are. Maybe it is late at night and the house is completely quiet, and you are lying there with your eyes open, staring at the ceiling in the dark, carrying something you cannot put down and cannot fully explain. You have prayed, you have believed, you have held on longer than you ever thought you were capable of holding on, and still the breakthrough that felt so close at certain moments, the one you stopped mentioning to other people because you were tired of explaining why it had not happened yet, it has not come. Or maybe it is midday, and you are sitting somewhere alone, and the world is moving around you. Everybody else seems to be getting somewhere and doing something, and you are sitting very still in the middle of all of it, feeling like time is passing in a way that does not include you. Or maybe it is early in the morning, before anyone else is awake, and in the quiet before the day begins, you feel it, that tension. The gap between the life you are living and the life you know you were called to. That gap that neither prayer nor productivity has been able to close. I am not going to rush past where you are. I am not going to jump immediately to the hope and the good news without first sitting here with you for a moment and acknowledging something true. What you have been carrying is real. The weight of a prolonged, unanswered season is one of the heaviest things a human being can hold. And the fact that you are still here, still believing, still showing up, still listening, that is not weakness. That is one of the most extraordinary things I have ever witnessed. But chosen one, I need you to look at something with me. Because the story you have been telling yourself about this season, that nothing is happening, that the silence means no, that the delay is evidence of something wrong with you, that story is not true. And I want to show you exactly why. There are things moving in your life right now that you have likely not been reading correctly. Not because you are not paying attention, because no one taught you what to look for. The first thing to notice is that the people around you have been reorganizing. Someone who was constantly present in your life a year or two ago is now gone, or distant, or changed in a way you cannot fully account for. And someone new has arrived, maybe quietly, maybe unexpectedly, in a way that felt almost coincidental. The relationships in your life are shifting, and it has felt like turbulence. Heaven calls it positioning. The second thing is a restlessness inside you that nothing is satisfying right now. You try to settle into the same routines, and something in you will not stay still. Books find you at exactly the right moment. A song comes on that matches the feeling you have been carrying. A phrase someone says stops you cold because it lands in a place words do not usually reach. This is not coincidence. Something inside you is awake, in a way it was not 2 years ago, even if you cannot yet name what it is awake to. The third thing, and this is the one people most consistently miss, is that small openings have been appearing that you dismissed as too small, too ordinary, too far from what you imagined the breakthrough would look like. A conversation that felt random, but stayed with you for days. An invitation you almost declined. A thought that returned 3 times in 3 weeks, until you finally stopped dismissing it. Heaven rarely opens with the grand gesture. It opens with the small door to test whether you are paying attention to the frequency of what is already moving. The fourth thing is an urgency that you cannot fully explain. Not panic, not anxiety exactly. More like the feeling of being late for something important. Your body knows the appointment exists, even when your mind has not confirmed the details. That urgency is real, and it is not a warning. It is a signal. And the fifth thing, the one that matters most in this moment, is that you are here, right now, listening to this. At this specific point in your specific season. That is not accident, that is arrangement. The chosen one, what you have been experiencing, is not the absence of breakthrough. It is what breakthrough looks like before it breaks through. It looks like underground movement. It looks like roots growing downward in the dark before anything appears above the soil. Think about a seed. You plant it, and the ground looks completely still for weeks. A person who does not know what is happening underneath could look at that soil every single day and conclude with complete certainty that nothing is occurring. But below the surface, in the dark, where no measurement can capture it, something is pressing through growing roots downward, establishing what must exist below before anything can rise above. You have not been in a dead season. You have been in a root season. And root seasons look exactly like what you have been experiencing from the outside. They look like waiting. They look like silence. They look like nothing. While everything necessary is being built underground in the hidden preparation for what is coming, this alone would be enough to give you something real to hold on to tonight. But what I want to show you goes deeper, because the signs are real and the movement is real, but there is a specific reason you have not been able to receive what those signs are pointing toward. And that reason is something no one has probably named for you yet. Here is what I want to tell you, and I want you to hear it with complete honesty. The breakthrough that is approaching your life, the one all of those signs are pointing to, has been running into something. Not a locked door, not a closed heaven, not punishment, and not disqualification. Something more specific than any of those things, and more fixable. The breakthrough has been running into a receiver that has been turned all the way down. Think about the wisest, most certain moment of knowing you have ever had. A gut feeling that proved completely right. A flash of clarity that arrived from nowhere and changed a decision. An intuition that protected you from something you did not fully understand until later. Where did that come from? What was that faculty? That was your receiver working at full capacity. That was the version of you that was built for this, built by the same God who called you, built to pick up exactly what heaven is broadcasting, built with a capacity for receiving divine signal that most people never discover they carry. But here is what has happened over time to most people carrying a calling as significant as yours. Life pressed in, disappointments accumulated. The pace of everything around you, the noise, the demand, the chronic low-grade pressure of existing in a world that never pauses, created something researchers have documented carefully. A kind of static, a persistent interference sitting between you and your own deepest knowing, between you and the signal that is already being broadcast directly at your life. Your receiver has not been destroyed. It has not been taken. It has simply been turned down by everything the world asked of you over the years, and no one told you that was happening or how to restore it. Think about Moses standing at the edge of the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army behind him, an impossible sea in front of him. Every signal his nervous system was capable of producing was screaming the same thing. This is where it ends. You brought all these people here, and now there is nowhere to go, and yet the breakthrough was already in motion. The miracle was not something that still needed to be created. It was already prepared, already real, already aimed at that exact moment, on that exact shore. Moses could not see it, but it was there. And Moses did not receive the breakthrough by waiting for the sea to part first and then deciding to step forward. He received it by stepping toward what he could not yet see, by making the declaration in his body, in his feet, in the direction of his movement, before a single wave moved. And the moment his foot touched the water responded. Receiving is an act before it is an evidence. You do not wait for proof that the door is open before you move toward it. The stepping is the proof. The decision to move in the direction of what you believe is the activation mechanism of what is already waiting for you. But here is where it gets most specific, and this is what I want you to sit with carefully. There is something that makes that step feel impossible for people like you. People who have believed hard and waited long and been disappointed deeply know a particular kind of hesitation right at the threshold. It sounds like this. What if I open myself to this fully, and it still does not happen? I am not sure I can survive that kind of hope, followed by that kind of silence again. I hear that. I honor it. That is not weakness. That is what happens to a person who held something sacred and felt it slip through their hands. But I need to tell you something true. That protective hesitation, however understandable it is the exact mechanism that has been keeping the sea from parting for you. Now, I want to share something with you, and I want to be completely honest about what it is and what it is not. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying what happens inside the human brain during moments of deep clarity, intuition, and breakthrough, what he calls synchronized receiving, the state where a person can actually pick up what their life and their calling are trying to communicate to them. What he found, documented in research from institutions including Princeton, MIT, and Stanford, is that the brain carries a natural receiving frequency, a brainwave state called gamma, that is fully present in children and begins to decline as early as age 7 under the pressures of modern conditioning. Not because of sin, not because of spiritual failure, because of overstimulation, chronic low-grade stress, and a system that was never designed to support the kind of deep clarity you were created with. Dr. Lake spent years compressing what biofeedback therapists charge $300 per session to restore, and what dedicated home equipment costs $7,000 to replicate into something far simpler. A 7-minute audio track, headphones on, eyes closed. The brain entrainment technology embedded in the sound does what the modern world has made difficult for your nervous system to do on its own. It returns your brain to gamma, to the frequency where intuition sharpens, where synchronicities become readable, where what heaven is already broadcasting can actually land. This track is called the Genius Song. The price for people receiving this message specifically is $39, not $49, which is the standard retail price, and this rate is not available on Amazon or anywhere else. It comes with 4 additional resources: an audio track designed to support children in activating focus and clarity, the original book that the film The Secret drew from, a guided visualization across the 4 most important areas of life, and an infographic on the 5 habits most directly tied to building a life aligned with purpose. All of it is backed by a complete money-back guarantee with no conditions and no expiration. I want to be clear, this is a tool, not a miracle. It does not replace prayer or faith or the process of becoming who you are being called to be. What it does is address the static, the interference that has been sitting between you and your own receiver, so that what is already being sent from heaven has a clearer path to land. One more thing before we move forward. There are counterfeit versions of this technology appearing online under the same name, and they do not contain the real brain entrainment frequency. They are ordinary audio with no meaningful effect on the brain state. The only source where the original technology, the bonuses, and the guarantee are all fully intact is the link in the description and the pinned comment of this message. Please do not search for it elsewhere. That link is the only verified source for those who feel called to explore that it is there. For those who do not, what comes next is the deepest truth underneath all of this, and it belongs to you completely regardless, because we have talked about the signs that are already moving in your life. We have talked about why the receiver has been quieted and what can restore it. But there is something even deeper underneath both of those things, something that lives right at the threshold itself. A specific pattern, a specific lie that has cost the chosen one more than any external force, more than any circumstance, more than any closed door. And in the next part of this message, I am going to name it directly, because when you see it clearly, and I mean clearly, everything changes. Not just what you believe, everything. Chosen one. Let me go underneath all of it now. Not the delay, not the circumstances, not the noise. The thing that has been living in the space between the breakthrough and you, quietly, persistently, with the voice of something that almost sounds like wisdom. There is one sentence that has cost the chosen one more than any enemy, more than any closed door, more than any season of prolonged waiting. One sentence that rises up at the exact wrong moment, not in the middle of the valley when you expect resistance, not at the lowest point when you have already braced for it, but at the threshold. Right as things begin to move, right as the first real opening shows itself, right as the door appears in a way it has not appeared before, and it sounds like this. Are you sure this is for you? People like you do not usually get things like this. What makes you think this time is different? I want you to sit with that for a moment, not because I want you to stay there, but because I want you to recognize it completely, because that voice is not wisdom. That voice is not discernment. That is what happens when a person has hoped with everything they had and been hurt deeply enough that the protective part of them learned to shut the signal down right at the moment the answer was finally arriving. And here is what makes it most difficult. That voice does not get loudest in the middle of the waiting. It gets loudest at the threshold. The closer you actually get to the breakthrough, the more convincing the lie becomes. Which means the very thing that sounds like a warning that the door is closed is actually evidence that you are closer than you have ever been in this season. Think about David, anointed by the prophet Samuel at roughly 15 years old, spoken over, chosen, called out from his brothers while they stood taller and looked more qualified by every visible measure. That anointing was real from the moment it happened. The calling was real, the promise was real, and then he went back to the sheep, not to the palace, not to the training ground for kings, back to the field, back to the animals, back to the work that no one was watching and no one was recording and no one was celebrating. For 15 years of sleeping under stars, while the promise was already spoken over his life. 15 years of obscurity, while the anointing was already real. 15 years of tending what was small and hidden, while something large and visible was being prepared that he could not yet see. And I want you to understand what those 15 years were building, because it was not what it looked like from the outside. It was not wasted time. It was not God forgetting. It was the interior architecture of a person who could carry a kingdom without being destroyed by the weight of it. The wilderness was not punishment, it was construction. Hidden, underground, essential construction of the person who would be strong enough to hold what was coming without losing himself in it. And chosen one, I cannot give you a timeline. I will not tell you the season ends in 30 days or 30 weeks. What I can tell you, with everything I carry, is that the pattern is real. You are not in a dead season. You are in a David season. And the thing being built in you, in the ordinary, in the unseen, in the parts of your life that feel the most mundane and the most hidden, that is not the delay. That is the vault being constructed so that the treasure, when it arrives, can actually be held. Because here is what most people never consider about breakthrough. The people who receive it before they are formed to carry it almost always lose it. Not because they were unworthy, because the interior foundation was not yet built strong enough to hold what arrived. The door opens, the blessing comes, and without the formation, it slips through. 3 things have been built in you in this season that no shortcut could have given you. The first is the capacity to receive without immediately losing what you received. The ability to hold a breakthrough without it overwhelming the very person it was given to, without it inflating you past recognition or collapsing you under the pressure of its weight. The second is discernment. The ability to distinguish the difference between a door that opens because it is right and a door that opens because it is a test. Not every opportunity that appears in a breakthrough season originates from the same source. The wilderness teaches you to tell the difference from the inside rather than discovering it too late. And the third is groundedness. The kind of stability that does not collapse when the breakthrough finally arrives and does not collapse when it is challenged after arriving. Because breakthroughs are always challenged after they come through. The question is never only whether you can receive them, the question is whether you can maintain what you received under the pressure of everything that follows. And that maintenance is built in the years that look exactly like nothing. This is what has been happening in your wilderness, not punishment. Vault construction. Now, I want to tell you something that I need you to receive slowly. Something that reframes every single thing we have talked about in this message. The signs, the quieted receiver, the lie at the threshold, all of it together. This is the deepest truth. And it changes the entire picture. The breakthrough you have been waiting for is not a thing being delivered to you from somewhere outside. It is a version of you being delivered through the door you are standing at. The question you have been asking this entire season is, when is my breakthrough coming? What must I do to receive it? What is standing in the way? And those are honest questions, chosen one. But they are built on a premise that does not hold. They all assume the same thing, that the breakthrough is out there somewhere, approaching you, waiting for the right conditions to arrive. But here is the truth underneath all of it. You are not waiting for the breakthrough. You are the breakthrough. You have been the breakthrough this entire time. What God has been forming in this season is not a person who receives the change the world needs. It is a person who embodies it, who carries it, who becomes the living mechanism through which it moves. Look at Moses again, but from a different angle this time. Moses did not receive freedom and then hand it to the people of Israel. He became the living passage through which freedom moved. He did not experience the miracle and report back. He was the miracle, the human bridge between what was enslaved and what was about to be liberated. The freedom did not visit Moses, it moved through Moses. Look at Joseph. When his brothers arrived in Egypt during the years of famine, they were not receiving provision from a fortunate stranger. They were receiving it from the very person the 17 years of suffering had been forming and positioning for exactly that moment. Joseph was not the recipient of the breakthrough. Joseph was the breakthrough placed strategically ahead of the crisis so that everyone connected to him could survive what was coming. This is why heaven is urgent right now in your life, not only for your sake, For the sake of everyone connected to what you carry, the urgency pressing against your spirit in this season is not just about your blessing. It is about what becomes possible for everyone in your sphere the moment you stop standing at the threshold and step through. So let me tell you who you actually are, not who the delay told you you were, not who the lie at the threshold has been whispering when things felt close. Who you actually are. You are the spiritual warrior, the one who holds the ground when everything is pushing you to retreat. You have been holding it in the silence, in the uncertainty, in the moments when no one was watching, and you still chose to stay. That is not stubbornness, that is assignment. You were built to hold lines that other people cannot maintain, and you have been holding them in this season in ways you do not fully see yet. You are the cycle breaker. What ends in you does not continue past you. The pattern of standing at the threshold and not walking through it ends with you. The generational habit of believing that this kind of breakthrough is for other people, but not for people like us, it ends with you. You are not the continuation of the cycle. You are the one who terminates it. You are the seer. You perceive what others cannot. You knew something was real about this season, even when you could not explain it, even when the external evidence argued against you at every turn. That sensitivity, the thing that made you feel the urgency in your chest at the beginning of this message, the thing that brought you here in this specific moment, that is not what makes you strange. That is the exact instrument you were given for navigating exactly this. And you are the deliverer. You create freedom in spaces where there was none. Starting with the most important space, the one that exists between you and your own door. Now, before we close this time together, I want to guide you through something. Wherever you are right now, sitting, lying down, still in your car, I want you to breathe in slowly. And as you release that breath, I want you to imagine placing something down. Not dramatically, not with effort, just setting it down the way you would set down a bag you have been carrying all day when you finally reach home. The old ceiling. The belief that what is possible for someone like you has a limit that other people's possibility does not have. Just let it down on the exhale. You do not have to carry that story forward. Breathe in again. And this time, release the comparison. Every moment spent measuring your progress against someone else's visible timeline. That measurement never told you the truth about where you actually were. It only measured the surface. Let it go completely. One more breath in, and this time release the protection. The mechanism that learned to hold hope loosely, that learned to hedge, that learned to believe but not too much, so that if the answer did not come, the fall would be shorter. You do not need that protection anymore. What is coming can hold the full weight of your complete belief. You are safe to receive it entirely. The person you are becoming does not ask, "Am I worthy of this?" That question belonged to the old version. The person stepping through the door asks a different question entirely. It asks, what does the version of me who has already walked through choose in this moment? And then it chooses that, before the proof arrives, before the sea has parted, before the external world has caught up with what is already true in the spiritual realm. Let us close this time together in a way that honors everything you walked through to get to this moment. God, we are grateful, genuinely and specifically, for this season, for what it built in the hidden places, for what it formed that the visible world could not yet see, for the faithfulness that did not leave when the answers were slow, for the construction happening underground while everything on the surface looked still. We give thanks for the root season. Even the dark parts of it, even the silent parts, even the parts we are still making sense of. None of it was abandoned. None of it was wasted. You saw every moment. Every prayer spoken in a quiet room with no immediate response. Every 3 a.m. when the weight was the heaviest and there was no one to explain it to. Every small act of faithfulness that no one recorded but you. Every moment of choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. Every time something in us held on without knowing why. Not 1 second of it was unseen. Not one breath of it was outside your attention. And now we release, out loud, with intention. We release the old story of what is possible for a person like us. We release it. The old ceiling that said, there is a limit here that does not apply to other people. We release it. The wound from the last time hope was high and then the silence came back. We release it. The comparison that spent years measuring our timeline against someone else's visible progress. We release it. The lie that rose up at the threshold and whispered, this is not really for you. We release it. The version of ourselves that needed that protection to feel safe. We release it. All of it. Completely. With no recollection. Gone. Now we activate. We call forth the spiritual warrior, the one who holds the ground without flinching, who does not collapse under the weight of the threshold moment, who maintains what others surrender. We call that version forward, not as a future aspiration, but as a present and living reality. We activate the cycle breaker, the one who ends in their own body, in their own choices, in their own threshold moment, the pattern that held the generations before us. What has stood at the door without walking through stops here. We activate the seer who reads the signs accurately, who is not confused by the underground season, who knows the difference between a root season and a dead one, and who sees the open door for what it actually is. And we activate the deliverer who creates freedom, beginning in the space between themselves and their own door, and then carries that freedom into every space they enter. We cover what is being built from premature exposure. Not every person needs to know what is being prepared before it is ready to be seen. Guard the formation. Guard the process. Protect what has been lifted in this time from anything that would pull it back down. Now we declare, not as a wish, not as a hope for someday. We speak this as what is already true in the realm where truth originates before it becomes visible. I am the chosen one who walks through the open door. I am the breakthrough, not only the one who receives it, but the one through whom it moves. I am the cycle breaker, and what held the generations before me at the threshold does not hold me. I am the spiritual warrior, and I hold the ground. I do not retreat at the moment of arrival. I am the seer, and I read this season correctly. I know what is moving. I know what is real. I am the deliverer, and the freedom begins with me walking through my own door. It is done. It is real. It is sealed. We receive it exactly as it is, not as a future promise still in transit, but as a present truth that the natural world has not yet caught up to. It is already moving, and we are ready, and so it is. Amen. Chosen one, one thing. Go to the comments right now and type the word door. Just that one word. Not as a gesture, as a declaration. A declaration that you are done standing at the threshold. That you have seen the door clearly, and you are choosing to step through. Type door and watch what that single act of declaration begins to shift in you from this moment forward. If someone came to your mind during this message, someone who is standing at their own threshold right now, someone who is in the middle of their root season and cannot see what is growing underneath, send this to them. You may not fully know how much it matters to them today, but something in you already knows, or they would not have come to mind when they did. And for those who felt the pull toward the genius song that I mentioned earlier, the 7-minute audio for restoring the gamma frequency, the God-given receiver that the world has been quietly turning down. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment of this message. Remember, there are counterfeit versions using the same name that carry no actual brain entrainment technology. Only the link below gives you the verified original with the complete bonuses and the full money-back guarantee. Chosen one, go walk through your door. Heaven has been holding it open longer than you know. And everything on the other side is exactly as real as the urgency you felt in your chest at the very beginning of this message. That was not anxiety. That was always activation.